I'm Randy Beard. In 40 years of pool construction, you learn the things we do every single day are often what we understand the least. Take a freshly plastered pool. The crew spends hours troweling and shaping a finish the owner just paid tens of thousands of dollars for. The plaster is still wet. It is still becoming what it is going to be. And then, while it is still curing, they pour a highly corrosive chemical right on top of it, muriatic acid, the exact same acid used to etch concrete. It is step 4 in the manufacturer's written instructions, and nobody thinks it is strange. Ask the trade why we acid wash a new pool, and the standard answer is that it exposes the aggregate. But according to plasterers who have finished thousands of pools, that answer is wrong. You acid wash a pool to remove a byproduct called laitance. Laitance is the weak, watery layer of cement fines and minerals that naturally rises to the surface as fresh cement bleeds out its water. It sits on top of the finish and it has to come off, but the trade often skips a critical detail. Laitance rises on its own schedule. Washing by a clock does not prevent the laitance from forming, it simply defers it, guaranteeing a blotchy surface later. The true test for readiness is not a timeline, it is a color. You wait until the surface turns pure white. When an applicator blindly follows the manual's clock instead of reading the color of the plaster, they lock in an aesthetic failure before a single drop of water ever enters the pool. Every pool builder has seen check cracking, a fine spiderweb network of hairline cracks across a new finish. The industry has a ready explanation for this. They say the pool dried out, or the wind picked up, or the weather suddenly turned. Jon Temple has plastered more than 30,000 pools, and he considers that explanation a myth. He argues that check cracking is entirely man-made and firmly the fault of the applicator. His diagnosis points to a specific mechanical failure. It is caused by too much water at the mixer, not a lack of water in the environment. The physical evidence supporting his claims sits in Florida test pools. These are plastered shells that have sat completely empty, baking dry in the sun for 6 to 8 years without a single check crack appearing. This document is a major manufacturer's own technical specification sheet. It details the exact limit for a proper batch of quartz finish, 18 gallons of water, not to exceed 20. The print specifically warns that exceeding this water limit directly weakens the plaster matrix and leads to check cracking. The trade deeply believes the sun and wind cause these cracks. The physical anomalies in the field and the manufacturer's own fine print point directly to the water bucket. To understand how the excess water gets into the mix, you have to look closely at the mixing station, performance modifiers. This creates a hidden arithmetic trap. A plasterer mixing to the physical feel they were taught is unknowingly adding water against significantly less actual binder than they assume. The physical consequence is immediate. As excess water leaves the matrix, it hollows out the structure, leading microfractures. Once filled, these cracks become open portals for water intrusion. The pool water actively dissolves the internal calcium compounds meant to hold the surface together. The scaling, roughness, and staining that an owner experiences years later is a cascading failure triggered by an invisible math error at the mixer on day one. At the very center of this debate is a specific chemical compound, calcium hydroxide. The industry's official technical manual mandates that a newly plastered pool be filled with water immediately. The chemistry behind this argues that underwater, calcium hydroxide remains soluble, allowing it to naturally heal and reseal hairline cracks. The manual warns that if the finish is left exposed to the air, atmospheric carbon dioxide converts the compound into insoluble calcium carbonate, which permanently locks those cracks open. The dissenting view holds the exact opposite and argues that calcium hydroxide is integral to the matrix's strength, and that the surface actually requires 24 hours of air exposure to properly carbonate and harden before any acidic water touches it. One compound, two printed conclusions. It is called the weakest hydration product by one side and integral to structural strength by the other, and the official standard is quietly shifting. The 9th edition of the technical manual held a strict 3 to 5 day immersion deadline. In the 10th edition, that hard deadline was erased, replaced with the subjective phrase, in a timely manner. The highest technical authorities in the industry are actively wrestling with the chemical paradox. The workers on the ground are left to navigate the contradiction. When a new finish turns blotchy, rough, or scaled, the industry has a highly reliable set of answers. They point to the water chemistry, they point to the startup company, they point to the pool owner. To be clear, balancing a pool's initial water chemistry is a rigorous, document driven craft built by dedicated professionals like the late Greg Garrett. But water chemistry cannot physically carve trownel marks into a finish. It cannot form distinct, uneven clouds of Laitance in the plaster. The pool service industry routinely takes the fall for mechanical and chemical damage built into the plaster before they ever arrived on site. Temple tested an alternative approach, completely abandoning muriatic acid. He neutralized the fresh surface with a sodium bicarbonate wash instead. The physical results were jarring. The dark oxidation caused by the acid washed entirely away, and the check cracks vanished. Temple now sells an organic alternative to muriatic acid. Both sides of this debate have financial stakes in their methods, and you are entitled to know that. The disagreement is unresolved. It can only be settled by published, peer-reviewed data directly comparing air-cured to early-filled finishes. That data does not yet exist in the open literature. Until it does, an owner has to ask their builder 5 precise questions. What is the batch count and water mix ratio? Will the finish be exposed by troweling or acid alone? Will the surface sit until it is pure white before acid touches it? Either 3 people on the acid wash crew? And who holds ultimate responsibility for the surface 30 days after it fills? Science will eventually provide the data. Until then, your only protection is learning to read what the surface is telling you and asking the questions the industry refuses to ask itself.